I'm just going to start off by saying that there are lots of other tutorials on the internet that you can find that will give you more in-depth information on all of these tools. But for this tutorial's purpose, it's just for the making of Miss Bimbo hair, clothes, accessories, etc. To start, you need to make sure you have your layers palette up as well as your tools panel. You may also have the paths palette up. It may be useful to you, as well as the color. They're not required, but yeah. For layers, to make a new layer, it's like on the bottom right of the layers. There's a trash can and then a little paper with a fold on it. That makes a new layer. You can keep making as much as you want. To rename a layer, you just have to double click the name and then it will rename it. The most important thing you probably need to know is how to use the pen tool. Now, not all designers on Miss Bimbo use the pen tool, but for good, clean, easy designs, I recommend using the pen tool. To use it, all you have to do is click once and then click twice. Now, if you keep doing this, you're just going to keep getting straight lines. If you want a curved line, you click once, you click and hold your mouse down, do not let go, and then drag. You'll be able to move it however you want it to curve. Now, from here, by clicking again, you might get a curve you want, but you might get a curve you don't want. So, what you can do is hold down Alt and then click the point that you just made, and it will delete half of that little thingy. So now you can make a curve that starts from that point. See that? Now, you can choose to close your path, or you can leave it open. Now, at this point, you're probably like, how do I click off of it and start a new one? If it's not closed. See, you keep going and it won't stop. But to deselect this, all you have to do is hold Control and then click the keyboard, and you'll be able to keep going. Now, if you're done, all you have to do is hit Escape, and they will disappear. Or you can go to Paths palette, and you'll see your work path here, and it will display. So if you want to delete it or get rid of it, all you have to do is click the gray area. So you have two options: Escape or the gray area. Now, to make your pen tool do what it's supposed to when it comes to Miss stuff, you're going to use fill and you're going to use stroke. So if you want to fill shape, you right click and make sure you're on your pen tool, because it won't display if you're not on your pen tool, and you choose fill path. Just hit OK, and it will fill with whatever color you've got. Okay? Then, if you want to stroke it, you can choose to stroke path. Now you have to make sure that your brush tool is set to 1 pixel. Mine's at 5 right now. You want to make sure that 1 pixel. So it's a small stroke. You're always going to use 1 stroke when it comes to making stuff, because if it's any bigger, it's going to look so. Stroke path, and there you go. You have a stroked path. So again, you use on your keyboard the Alt button, the Control button, and you can use the Escape button when making your paths and your lines and your fills, whatever. The next tool is the blur tool. What I'm going to do is make a shape and fill it just so I can show you the blur tool. It's right here under the eraser. Now, it might be different in CS5. I've only used CS5 a few times. I'm on CS4 right now. So, the blur tool looks like a little raindrop, and pretty much does what it says. It blurs. You can change the strength of it up here, and the size of it here. You may also change the size of it using the bracket tools on your keyboard next to the P. The right bracket increases in size, and the left decreases in size. Now, you might be able to see this on my recording because it's just showing my mouse, I believe, but it will increase and decrease if you use those brackets. The next thing I want to tell you about is filters. The filters are over here in the layers palette. You're going to see something that says normal. There's a drop down box and it's tons of options. Pretty much this will just give you different overlay type options for every single one. You're going to get different effects on all of them, and not all of them are going to work good all the time. You use these mostly when you're putting patterns or textures on top of a design you've already made. You're really not going to use them for much else when making Bimbo stuff anyway. Next thing is the paintbrush. Paintbrush is over here, and it also does what it says. It's a paintbrush. You can use the paintbrush to just do freehand with your mouse or tablet if you have one, or you can click once and then hold shift and click again and keep doing that to get straight lines. You can also hold shift and then draw a straight line horizontally or vertically. Next thing is the eraser. Pretty much does what it says. Looks like the eraser. You can erase stuff. You can find the opacity up here, which will erase. The higher it is, at 100%, you're going to erase everything. And the lower it is, you're going to erase a little. Again, the sizes up here, and you can change it with your brackets. It works for the eraser, the paintbrush. It works for lots of things. The next thing is zooming in on your canvas, zooming out. There's a magnifying glass, which you can zoom in. Options up in the top left here, you can choose zoom out. The easier way to do it is on your keyboard, and that's holding down Control and then plus or minus by your numbers up top on your keyboard. So Control plus zooms in, Control minus zooms out. The next thing is the color palette. Now, over here, you can have your color up and you can change it however you want, and you'll see over here on the left, it will change. You can also, up here, I don't know if you can see it well, but in the top right area of your color palette, there's a little drop down thing, and you can change it from RGB to CMYK or grayscale if you really want. I would recommend staying on RGB because that was designed for the web. CMYK is designed for printing, so if you want to print something, you can use CMYK, but stick with RGB. You can also change your color over here by directly clicking on these, and you can change it however you want. You also have the option to switch between by these little arrows. So if you want this color and then you want this color, it's really useful if you are working with two different colors on your design, but I pretty much stick with one. The next thing is the spacebar on your keyboard. It's really convenient when you just want to like move your canvas around. It's easier than zooming in and zooming out or moving your canvas with the right or bottom bars. You can just grab your canvas and you can move it. In CS5 it's pretty cool because you can like throw your canvas and it throws. But I'm using CS4 and just move. I think it does the same thing as CS3, but I'm not sure if it has the same effects in lower versions of Photoshop. The next thing is the layer styles panel, and you can find that in the layers palette. It's this little FX at the bottom. If you click that, a bunch of options are going to show up. The ones you're going to be using pretty much when doing Bimbo stuff is the color overlay, the gradient overlay, and the stroke. So here you get a whole panel. Color overlay is what I use the most when making stuff. You can change the color of the layer that you're working on to anything you want. This is really, really convenient and time saving when you want to change the colors if you make multiple versions of your design. There's also a gradient overlay, which is pretty much self-explanatory. It gives a gradient to the layer. And if you're making a multicolored dress, this could be like a really cool effect you could use. Another thing you could use is the stroke. You can make it a 1 pixel stroke, and at the base layer of your design, you could do like an outer stroke with a darker color than what you're working with. So you could do it that way, or you could do it just on a new layer with using the pen tool and do the right click stroke path. Either way, it works. The next thing is Gaussian blur, which under filter, blur, Gaussian blur. This is really nice because it blurs your layer evenly, cleanly. You can change it just by moving this bar. It's really nice when you're doing a certain type of shading in certain areas. It's not always going to be what you want to use, but just remember it. The next thing is levels and hue and saturation. They're mostly going to be used with patterns and textures. If you're going to import them from the internet or wherever, if you want to change the pattern, you're going to need to know the levels of hue and saturation. So to get there, you go to Image, Adjustments, Hue and Saturation, or Levels. They're both in this panel. Or you can use Control U to bring up the Hue and Saturation panel, and you can move the hue of your layer and change the saturation, which pretty much makes it brighter or duller. The other thing to do is levels, which gives it contrast. It's much better than its contrast, in my opinion, because you have more control over it. You can change the brightness of it, the darkness, and the midtones. It's nice if you give a pattern and you want to change the color and also like the brightness and contrast of it, I would use levels to get the effect that I want. The next thing is the gradient tool, which you can find over here. When you first open Photoshop, you're probably going to get the paint buff tool automatically, but if you just hold it down, gradient tool's right there. This is really nice when you're using a layer mask under. To make a layer mask, you're going to go to Layers palette again, and it's next to the little FX. It's a rectangle with a square inside, circle inside, and you're going to click it, and you'll see that it makes a new little box on your layer. What this does is it gives a mask to your layer. So instead of making a layer and erasing it and worrying about if you're going to mess up, what you have to do is put a layer mask on, and you can use a gradient tool, for example, and it will fade it perfectly. Writing down Shift and dragging it so it's straight, but you can go any direction. See how that fades it? Another thing you could do is use black and white. They show up every time you're on a layer mask. Use your paintbrush tool and draw on. Say with black. Black makes everything disappear and white makes everything appear. So that's white on the layer mask. Now this is nice if you are scared of messing up, just use a layer mask and you won't have to worry about it. You can always delete your layer mask and start over, or just fill it completely white and you're done. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And always remember Control Z. Control Z undoes everything that you last did, like everything else on your computer and the internet. Control Z. If you want to keep going back, you hold Control Alt Z and it will keep going. Now these are all PC commands that I'm teaching you. For Mac, you're going to have to look them up. I haven't used Mac in a long time, so I know some of them you have to hold down Apple, but for the most part, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments.